I am Roz Clemens. I am the director of the Department of Neighborhoods.
This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
This is an exciting time for us here at the Department of Neighborhoods. We have never implemented a NOFA process for this size for our housing projects here in the city, and we are excited that we're able to start this process, which is a best practice all over the country. We have an opportunity here to deploy $16 million of ARPA funding, of HOME dollars and HOME-ARP dollars into projects that address the housing challenges here in the city of Toledo. We're excited that you guys have joined us and are considering applying for this funding. The purpose of this workshop is to go through the ARPA and the HOME NOFA, answer your questions, provide some clarity to what we're trying to achieve here. And hopefully this process will result in some very good project applications that we would like to fund. We commit to you all that this will be a very streamlined process. We're not looking to drag this out. We're looking to look at these projects and make decisions here very quickly, because we know that you will be applying to other funding sources and you will need to show some soft commitments for our funding. Again, we promise you that this will be a transparent and open process. We will be objective as we select these projects and review your applications. And we are anticipating in advance your cooperation. So I will now turn this over to Tiffany McNair, who is the Housing Commissioner for the City of Toledo, Department of Neighborhoods, and she will run through the ARPA NOFA requirements and the application. So Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Right now, I want to say we have over 30 attendees. We are excited about your enthusiasm and interest in this NOFA and your goals to increase our affordable housing stock here in the city of Toledo. The first thing I want to let everyone know is that this webinar is being recorded. We will upload the webinar along with the slides to our website after we have finished our presentation here this morning. So we'll be able to go to the first slide, and I'd like to also ask that if you have questions, please drop them in the chat box. We will address questions at the end of the presentation. So this is our NOFA timeline as it was described in the actual NOFA that some of you received via email or you were able to get from our website. Our NOFA was issued on November 30th. Today is the day that we are in our mandatory NOFA workshop. We will talk a lot about what our evaluation criteria would be, the type of projects we want to fund, and other questions, answer additional questions as they arise. Our applications are due in Zoom grants on January 21st, no later than 4:45 p.m. That application, we are just making some minor tweaks to it at this moment, but it will be available today. Our goal is to have 30 or less questions. Some of them are multiple choice. Some are single line questions, and others require a little more detail. Our notice of project selection and soft commitment will occur on or before February 18th of 2022. And our final commitment and execution of written agreements will be determined based on additional items that will be listed in the soft commitment that will get us to the final written agreement. The City of Toledo housing needs were compiled. Many of you know about the work we did over almost a year's time, getting together our comprehensive housing strategy and 10-year plan. Through that strategy, we have a link, again, in these slides, which will be available at the end of this presentation, where you can take a look at that. It's also in a NOFA. But it was determined that 92% of all of the homes in Toledo were built prior to 1980. As you are aware, older homes pose a health hazard and safety hazard, particularly to low to moderate income households. We have a shortage of over 12,000 extremely low income units. This NOFA is there to also provide preference for those developers that want to impact that shortage and decrease it. We have 19,305 households that are considered severely cost burdened. That means they are paying more than 50% of their income towards housing costs. Typically, housing costs should not exceed more than 33% of households' income. So here in Toledo, we have a huge number that are really carrying a heavy load when it comes to covering their housing costs. 40% of our residents are 65 and older with a disability. And finally, 40% of our households rent. And that number continues to rise here in the city. We're looking at closer to over 50% of renters. And this is NOFA to address the affordable housing needs here in the city of Toledo. Our funding priorities are listed below. We are looking to solicit proposals for the development of affordable rental units, permanent supportive housing, and non-congregate shelters. I just want to note here that if anyone on this webinar is a total or non-total developer seeking to apply for funds for the construction or development of homebuyer units, there is a separate application. The link is available in these slides. That application will be available on Zoom Grants as well. Our funding goals for our HOME-ARP and ARPA dollars are to award $16 million in home funds, and it should say HOME-ARP and ARPA dollars to eligible housing development and/or rehabilitation projects. We will evaluate the applications and determine, among other things, the organization's readiness to proceed and staff capacity. We have a well-seasoned team here at the City of Toledo that will conduct those evaluations and provide advisement to myself and the director on projects that meet the needs that we have procured from our housing strategy. And finally, we want to support the funding needs for the development of rental projects for low to moderate income households. And that will be for households that are at or below 60% the area median income. Just to offer some insight on HOME-ARP eligible activities. HOME-ARP will allow us to fund affordable rental housing, tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, and non-congregate shelter. These activities will be identified as HOME-ARP with the subtitle afterwards. HOME-ARP funds must be used to benefit individuals and families that meet the requirements for the qualifying populations. In our application, there is a question that asks if your development will serve one or more of those qualifying populations, and there is information regarding what the HUD definition of those populations will be. With our ARPA dollars, we are required to deploy those funds into qualified census tracts or QCTs. Qualified census tracts are census tracts where 50% of the households have income at or below 60% of the area median gross income. The population of all census tracts that satisfy this criterion does not exceed 20% of the total population of the respective area. And in areas where more than 20% of the population qualifies, census tracts are selected in order from highest percentage of eligible households to the lowest until the 20% limit is exceeded. We have in the library tab of our application a map of the City of Toledo's qualified census tracts. This presentation offers an interactive map, so when and if you choose to pull the presentation from the website, you will be able to hover over and click over some of these areas and see if your project is in our census, our QCTs. We are continuing our efforts to put energy and dollars into our neighborhood revitalization strategy areas, or NERSAs. This definition has not changed from last year's NOFA, but our NERSAs are intended to revitalize a targeted neighborhood by encouraging a coordinated approach through comprehensive place-based efforts. By targeting an area, NERSAs have the opportunity to stimulate and leverage investments, empower low-income residents in distressed neighborhoods. Our NERSAs are currently City of Toledo designated NERSAs. We still have our application and proposal in front of HUD to have HUD layer on their designation of what we've already determined to be our areas of focus here in Toledo. And again, we will have a map in the library tab for the QCTs and the NERSA areas. This is the criteria used to select a NERSA. 70% of the population must be low to moderate income and primarily residential. A resident-driven neighborhood plan is already in place. Leverage, it's the opportunity to leverage philanthropic and private sector investments, and community engagement, strong community leadership, which can be capitalized to drive neighborhood improvements. These are our target NERSA areas. We have Inglewood, the Old South End, Garfield, Star, Raymer. We do ask in the application if you are developing in one of these areas or not at all. Again, this is going to be an interactive map available through the slides. So our NOFA evaluation criteria has changed this year. We are looking for ways to make it more attainable for some of our newer developers, while also giving an opportunity for innovative ideas to gain points. So what we have are 4 different categories: project information, financial feasibility, applicant experience, and other. Each category has a maximum of 50 points available for the category. But if you notice, we have percentages next to each title. That tells you how much of that category is used for the overall scoring. So if we have a developer, for example, that has the 10+ years of experience, because we find that project information and the type of project, the targeted population, it has more significance to us. The experience, although you can get 50 points, and the project information, you can get 50 points, those are not equal priorities for the city. So with that, we put in the weighted scoring process that the experience will count towards something. So the maximum of the overall weighted score is 10 points, but the project information is going to be worth 20 points. I know that there'll be some questions with that. I anticipate being able to answer those, but this approach, in my opinion, allowed almost a leveling of the playing field when it came to the types of development and offering newer and innovative developers, and not to take away from our more seasoned and veteran developers here, not to take away from that at all, but just to allow a leveling of the playing field when it comes to the type of projects that we see here in the city of Toledo. All of this scoring information is available in the NOFA. This is verbatim what you saw when you read the NOFA as far as our evaluation criteria. I'm going to pass the baton over to Director Clemens, who will go over the key funding conditions for this NOFA.
Thank you, Commissioner McNair. We wanted to just talk about the key conditions. Let's say you go through this and you receive a soft commitment, what to expect. These are federal dollars, and the city of Toledo has a history of requiring projects over $100,000 to be subject to a project labor agreement. We wanted to just put that out here today to make sure that developers understand this, and we will have additional detail on the project labor agreement in the resource page of the application. Your development budget that you submit and the soft commitment that we provide will be subject to your evolving numbers, and the construction budgets will have to be validated with construction contracts and construction agreements before our final funding commitments will be issued. Each application will be evaluated for each funding pool and may be funded from a specific pool or a combination of the 3 funding sources that are subject to this NOFA. If you receive a soft commitment, your funds will be reserved for a maximum of 12 months, but may be withdrawn earlier if satisfactory progress is not demonstrated. We reserve the right to reallocate funds or to cancel your funding reservation if we don't feel that progress is being made. And certainly at the end of that 12-month period, you would have to reapply. The funding will be closed as a subordinate loan, and interest rate and terms are subject to negotiation. You will be required to execute a promissory note, a mortgage, regulatory agreement, and there will be restricted covenants for the affordable units. Our closing on our money will occur concurrently with other funding sources. Our funds will be dispersed in each draw as a prorated share equal to the % of our funding in the development budget. Home and home ARP funding projects must comply with the affordability requirements of the HOME program final rule. ARPA funded units determined by the funds or the % of ARPA funds in the total development budgets must remain affordable to targeted AMI households for a minimum of 15 years, and we will conduct monitoring annually. And of course, because these are federal funds, any entity or person that has been suspended or debarred cannot participate or cannot receive funding. So those are the key conditions of the funding. And now we will, Tiffany, do you want to go ahead now and open it up to questions? You're on mute.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Shelley Aldridge. Can you distinguish between home and home ARP? Home is our regular home entitlement, and that's where we do what we consider our regular home activities, which will be the development of affordable rental housing. We may do some owner-occupied activities. Owner-occupied is our owner-occupied rehabilitation program. And we also have TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance. And the fourth is the home buyer development activity. Home ARP was put together. Jackie, if you can go back to the slide where it talks about the purpose of Home ARP, those were dollars that were designated by the Treasury Department, by Congress, and to the Treasury Department to meet the needs of qualifying populations. And the intent was those families that are homeless or at risk of homelessness needed to be able to have housing made available to them, especially during the pandemic. That's where we saw that we were, as a country, having a problem with non-congregate housing and supporting people that needed the services to maintain their non-congregate housing. Those dollars are set aside to really support those populations. So that is the main difference between HOME and HOME-ARP. Some of the requirements in regular home entitlement, they do roll over to the HOME-ARP, but HOME-ARP allows for a little, a bit more, I would say a little bit more of elbow room when it comes to the type of housing that is going to be funded. The next question is from Bria Mikolajczyk. If granted funds, is there a timeline in which you have to spend the funds by? Yes. If we execute an agreement, our development timeline is initially 24 months. That's typically what it is. It could be less depending on the type of development that you have. I believe I read ARPA dollars have to be spent by 2024. ARPA dollars have to be committed by 2024 and spent completely exhausted by 2026. So I think that answers, would that mean you have to be finished with the project at that time? No, if we commit ARPA dollars, we have to commit those by 2024. We have to spend them by 2026. If we are committing in 2022, you can just estimate that we will expect that you have them spent by 2024, not 2026. Madison Yoder, is this technically a loan rather than a grant? Thanks so much. Yes, we are going to set up our funding agreements as loans. The terms of that loan will be negotiable, and that will be at the discretion of the director of what will on January 1st be formally called Department of Housing and Community Development, Ms. Roz Clemens. I can't, is there anything else in the chat, Jackie? I can't see it.
Yes, we have two questions in chat. Justin Metzler said, can a project apply for both HOME and HOME-ARP or just one?
So in the application, there is a question that asks if the development is looking to serve what it has been determined as a qualified population. If they answer yes, then they will be considered for HOME-ARP, but we are going to look at each proposal and determine the type of funding that best meets the needs of our housing population, and then what funding is best served going into a particular project. In the qualified populations question, one may elect to say that they are not applying for HOME-ARP, just so they would not be even considered for it. But we do have the discretion to say that that's where we want to fund from.
Adam Martinez has a few questions. Is there a match requirement? Will there be a set aside for smaller projects? And can you couple tenant-based rental assistance with development funds?
We have not done that in my experience, but the tenant-based assistance with development funds. Is there a match requirement? We have not put out a match requirement. We do want to see that there is some equity put in by the owner that will be measured with the financial feasibility. If a development needs most of or all of their funds from the city of Toledo through these different sources, then they don't have good financial feasibility to make this thing happen on their own. Mike
John
McIntyre,
Tyler.
I'm sorry, I see the chat now, Jackie, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Mike McIntyre, could you describe the types of projects that would be considered for supportive services and non-congregate? I can get you that information. It is a longer answer and is available through slides that are available on the HUD's website on the types of eligible costs that they allow for each of those activities. Will you verify from John Kiley that a project in the Vistula district is eligible? I don't know if you're trying to ask me if they are eligible as being in the NERSA or QCT. I do know that the Vistula district is not one of our NERSA areas, but I also know that there are census tracts in the Vistula district that would be eligible. I'm not really understanding your question, Adam. With the 15 years eligibility, is that assumable? No, the 15 years of affordability, that's 15 years if it is a rehabilitated structure. It's 20 years if it's new construction. Would an affordable housing village be considered non-congregate shelter? Just on the face of that question, I would say yes. If there are separate living units with separate kitchens, separate restrooms, separate, units, altogether living units, full 100% of full functioning living unit. Just on the face of that question, I would say yes. So Shelley, you said because you said the allocation can be from a combination. Yes, we are not prohibited from subsidy layering our HOME-ARP and our HOME and our ARPA dollars. So as long as a project meets the criteria for each of those, we can layer those different funding sources into one project. The application is not open yet, Madison. I have just a couple of tweaks to make. It will be available this afternoon. Yes, you do have to create a profile in Zoom Grants to be able to complete the application. Ian Davis, the NOFA states preference will be given to projects that have 25% deferred developer fee, but this would be difficult and remaining within OFA underwriting requirements. This is not a requirement for the city of Toledo. We are just saying we have a preference for that. What kind of scoring weight is given to a preference such as that? The categories are scored in whole. So we're not pulling out just on the developer fee, what a score will be on that. When you get into the application, you see that they are scored on the whole for the whole category. From Crystal Kia, I am a startup home-based assisted living servicing homeless and low-income seniors looking for development for us to expand. Do I fall under any of the qualifications? If you are a developer, this is for nonprofit and for-profit developers. So as a developer, you may apply. This is again from Crystal, I have a 4-bedroom house offering private room, no shared. I don't know what that means, but again, non-congregate housing is individuals have their own unit, whether it's an apartment or studio type apartment efficiency where they have their own kitchen, their own restroom. If they needed to isolate for any reason, they have a fully functioning living space that is available only to them in their household. Is there a cap per project? I will let Director Clemens answer the question on a cap per project. I don't really, yeah, I'll let Director Clemens answer that question.
Well, thank you. I think like the previous question about 25% or greater deferment of your developer fee, that's a preference. I think we put in the NOFA that projects that are asking us for a gap of 10% or less of the total development cost would be projects that would score higher. We're not looking, these are gap funds that we are providing. So if you're coming in with a project and you want our funds to be the only funding in the deal or the significant funding in the deal, you're not going to score as high. Those projects that successfully leverage other funding sources and layer them on, but for a gap and but for a need of our funds, you're then coming into us to help to make that project happen. So again, there is no cap on the amount. I think it depends on where the project is, you know, the population that it's serving, the impact that it's going to have, the targeting of the units. But again, if you're going to, that gap is 10% or less of the total development cost, you're going to tend to score high in that feasibility section. Is this project gap funding a loan? Yes, it is. As I mentioned, this is a subordinate loan. It's a subordinate soft loan that will be placed on the property. We know that this is not, we're not going to interfere with your senior debt requirements. It's going to be subordinate, but we do want a chance to, at some point, get some money back from these commitments. So it will be a subordinate soft loan. And those projects that demonstrate once we, and this will evolve as we close the deal, those projects that we're looking for projects that demonstrate in your pro forma the ability to pay back that soft NOFA loan with cash flow. So if that helps the questioner with that information.
Melissa asked about the supportive services. The link that you put in the chat, Melissa, is not the link that you want to use. You want to look for HOME-ARP supportive services. There's much to kind of convey here now, but we will, if you send me an email, I will find that link for the supportive services that are available through HOME-ARP and send that to you. But if you would like to look for yourself, it is on the HUD Exchange website. What's the formula to determine the number of affordable units required in the development? So our team uses a cost allocation tool that is provided to us by HUD. We put the total development costs in the tool. We put the amount of gap financing requested from the city, and that tool pretty much gives us a minimum number of units that we need for that amount of funding. Our neighborhood development specialists, they are the ones that when these applications come in and we get ready to review and evaluate, they do put the proposed numbers and number of units into that cost, or they put the proposed number overall square footage into that allocation tool, and then they let us know what the results was. So we don't arbitrarily pull a number and say, this is the number of units we want. We do operate from a space of transparency and within the guidelines and the federal codes given to us by HUD. Are there any additional questions?
Commissioner McNair, there's also, isn't there also an opportunity to submit in writing clarifying questions?
Yes.
So you can submit clarifying questions. The deadline is December the 17th. And then we will get back to you with the answers to those questions to help facilitate the completion of your applications.
From Adam Martinez, can the loan be forgivable after the affordability period? I'm very happy to allow our director to answer this question on forgiveness.
The expectation for that HUD has is that we recycle program income from our federal dollars. I've been in the city of Toledo for 2 years. I worked on the East Coast, and we never forgave the home loan when the affordability period was over. If the property was sold or transferred, we got our money back. And the money that was then recycled and used to invest in other projects. Let's give you an example of the home dollars. The city gets $2.2 billion in home. With that money, we fund down payment assistance, we fund rental housing development, we fund lead remediation, and we have to support some of our housing staff. Program income that comes in from loans that are paid off after the affordability period helps to supplement that funding. Just to tell you the need that we have in the city, with home dollars, I can remediate a property that has lead and that has a young baby in it for $20,000. So the policy of this administration is that these loans are going to be although they're soft, you don't have to pay anything on them, but eventually you're going to have to pay us back because we need to recycle the program income to support the tremendous housing needs here in the city of Toledo. So forgiveness is not something that we are sort of are going to be doing easily with these transactions.
Next question, is an independent / sole proprietor able to participate in the funding project? Again, this is open to all developers. What would be significant if you are an independent and sole proprietor is the amount of equity that you can bring forth, the experience of your development team, because this is not ever anything that I believe anyone can just do alone. So there's still the same requirements, but yeah, a sole proprietor could attempt to do it. It will be difficult. I don't want to rush off, so if there's any more questions, we are happy to answer them. And it looks like that was a thank you. we're more than happy to answer them. Again, we are really appreciative of all of you that took the time out of your morning to join us on this workshop. We try to be as informative as we can. We try to ask of ourselves the questions that you may ask us so that we can give you a complete and useful presentation. So I am going to adjourn this meeting, but before I do that, Director Clemens, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Thank you, Commissioner McNair, and thank you all for participating this morning. We are anxiously awaiting your applications, and as I said earlier, we're going to move them quickly so as not to delay your ability to apply for your other funding sources. We've talked to many of you about your projects. A lot of them are good projects, and we really want to deploy the 16 million strategically and help you get to the finish line. So we know that this is a first time for the city of Toledo doing this. We know it's different. Some of you think that it's complicated, but really if you look across the country, this is what folks are doing, and this is the manner in which they're deploying their funds. So we're willing to answer your questions, your clarifying questions. And I think I am available, and Commissioner McNair is also available. Call us up, email us. We'll walk you through this. We'll help you so that your application is the best possible application, because we don't want to hold this money. We want to put it on the street. We want to get some exciting projects which are needed here in the city. So we look forward to your applications. And the mayor has said that he wants this process to yield 500 new units in the city over the next 4 years. And that's our intention, that's our goal. And we will work with all of you that hang in there with us and submit a good application. We want to make this goal happen in the city because these units are just desperately needed. So with that, we will, I guess, give you some of your time. It's 11:44, and give you back some of your morning. But again, thank you for participating. We look forward to seeing your applications and working with you on these projects. Thank you so much.
And before you log off, everyone, if you go to the chat box, this presentation is already in the chat box. Go ahead and grab that, download it, and you'll have it. And we will make sure we have it on our website as well if you joined us from your telephone or cellular phone. Thank you.